So welcome. We are really excited to have such a great turnout for this webinar, and we're even more excited to announce our new product, FrontView, that provides a connection between Workfront and Xinet. So I'm Jenna McKillop, and I'm an account manager here at Iowa Integration, and I also manage our Workfront partnership. As for Xinet, I've been working with Xinet in one way or another for pretty much my entire adult life. I'd also like to introduce my fantastic co-host, James Word. James is a business analyst and a certified Workfront specialist. Go ahead and say hello, James.
Hello, everybody.
So just a little housekeeping here. If you have questions, put them in the questions window and we'll answer them as many as we can at the end of the demo. And if the ones we don't get to, we'll answer, as follow-up to this webinar. Our agenda for today is we have just a few slides we're going to go through, and then James is going to provide a actual demo of the FrontView product. So, James, take it away.
Great, thank you, Jenna. Yeah, let's get right into it. This should happen fairly quickly, so let's go right to the meat of this and look at the demo. So the first thing we want to go is look at what life is like without FrontView. So without FrontView, we have two disparate systems that are not in sync with each other. They're both awesome systems, Xinet being your production asset management system, managing all of your work in progress assets, and Workfront being your work management system that's handling all your project management, your reviews and approvals if you have Workfront proof. And there has never been a better match for systems. So just automatically you want these systems to work in conjunction with each other. So what is the day-to-day pain when this isn't synchronized? Basically, you've got people working in silos. This creates a lack of access and visibility. People in Workfront can't access Xinet documents, and Xinet people can't necessarily access Workfront, and the visibility is difficult, so now we have broken communication. Sometimes people don't know who to ask. They don't even know they could get assets from a certain system. It's got to go through different routing channels, and this now introduces difficult and slow work processes. And at the same time, with separate systems, you have upload and download, and this is all the difficulty and wasted time. You have lots of confusion in this process. They're duplicates. This file name on one system is the same as this other, but you don't know which one is the right one, and that leads to this lack of version control as well, and so life becomes very painful. That then has a financial and operational impact on your organization. This confusion and all this extra effort leads to wasted time, that inefficiency, and really does require more resources to manage everything. So this is very expensive. So what's the solution? The solution is now to synchronize these two systems and get them working together in concert. Then you really have easy asset and metadata relationships that are automated through the entire life cycle of your projects. And your projects, in this case, being both your production asset management system and your work management system. That leads to happy users. When users have things automatically happen for them and they can see whatever they need to see from Workfront, or they can see what they need to see from Xinet, and they have metadata synchronized between those systems, now they have a unified view. They can search and preview assets, and they have metadata status updates that are in real time, and users are much happier. So
Thanks,
Jenna, we
James.
did some market research. Yeah, and I was hoping you could describe how we went through that.
Yeah, thank you, James. So yes, we spent about 3 months doing research and development. And during this time, we surveyed about 150 clients. We also interviewed many of the clients that were actually using Xinet and Workfront. And what we found out is that 95% of these clients that use both Xinet and Workfront they wish that they had a way for the two solutions to connect. So we've been doing some demos for our beta customers, and we've been getting great feedback. And you can see the quotes here, like, this would be like Christmas Day, and wow, this is like magic. So we're getting great feedback from our beta customers.
Yeah,
So
fantastic.
I think, James, yeah.
And it has been stunning, the feedback we've been receiving. But don't take our word for it, and don't take others' words for it. Let's go ahead and give you a live demo, and you can see exactly how this works. So I'm going to switch over here to, you should see Workfront on the screen. And in Workfront, I'm looking at a project. This is the Xinet layout project. And let's see how we can add Xinet documents right to our Xinet layout projects. So you can add Xinet documents to any area in Workfront. You can add documents, meaning projects, tasks, issues. Let's go ahead and go to Documents here. And I'm going to click the Add New button. And now you see an entry there on the left, says From IOI Xinet. You can customize that to be your pet name of the DAM if you like, or if you have certain departments that access just a portion of the Xinet server, you can create an access point for them. If I click From IOI Xinet, this brings up a browse window. So now I am browsing Xinet directly from within Workfront. And I'm not just able to browse Xinet through Workfront, but you know those great quick search utilities you have in Xinet? Those are now available here. So I can search for anything called, say, concept here, and then I immediately see the assets. I have thumbnail views that I can see the files, or I have list view. Let's go ahead and choose one of these, and I'm just going to link it now to Workfront document. So the mere fact of linking a Xinet file to Workfront means that the asset and all the data for the asset still reside on Xinet, but now we have a dynamic object in Workfront, and you can see this blue link icon that we're now dynamically linked to Workfront, and there's a Workfront object that we can apply metadata to. You can see that I have Workfront proof on this system, so Workfront proof is now generating a proof for this document automatically just by attaching it here. So very quickly you can work with proof. These documents are now available on this document tab for the project. Now let's take a look at one document here that's already set up, and let's just take a look at the proof. So we'll click Open Proof here. It goes right into proof if you have Workfront proof. So this is Workfront's nice integration with Workfront proof, so it's just automatically taking care of that for you. And the message here is that when you're routing these proofs and your teams are working on the reviews and approvals, you can come in and mark this as approved. And then once it's set to approved, you can automatically have that metadata synchronized back to Xinet. So now metadata, not just assets, but metadata is synchronized back and forth between the two systems. And if I take a look here at this custom form, you can actually see some of that metadata here is already in place as marketing for the department. And if I go to Xinet here and I take a look at that asset, you can see that we do have a Workfront department of marketing here. We also have the Workfront document ID reference, so you can use that to easily get back to that document in Workfront. And then also in the future, we're going to put this into a link, so you'll just click in Marquee and it'll take you right back into Workfront. So very easy to get between the two systems. So let's take a look at what happens when you have different versions for the documents. So different versions in Workfront can be just on documents, and they may or may not be related to Workfront proof versions as well. But when you have multiple versions, you'll see them here under the versions tab, And then for each version, you will get an additional version here, and that will be kept in sync with Workfront and Workfront Proof. So to create a new version, you simply choose the document, you go to More, a new version from IOI Xinet, and this was concept. So I just find the new version I'm looking for and I link it. And that will automatically, well, I click the generate proof button here, and now that will create a proof version. We have multiple versions now here in Workfront, and these are all dynamically linked to Xinet. So very, very nice functionality there. So let's go to our tasks and see what it looks like to add. Well, I want to show you two things. One, I want to show you how FrontView will help your project managers to automatically stage jobs in your Xinet production environment, and also be able to, your end users be able to add documents to tasks. But let's talk about these different milestones you see here: creative, photography, layout. So based on the metadata that's attached to the project on a special form, say Xinet taxonomy, then this project can automatically be created in Xinet, and in this case is this project here, the Xi 8956 layout project. And if I just show this in list view, you can see for each of these phases we have a folder. This project and the folders can be automatically staged. So just by the act of a project manager creating a project in Xinet based on, say, a Xinet project template, and then setting that project to current, then that would automatically stage the production environment with those dynamically named folders in the right location. So that's pretty cool. Let's go to the layout phase, and I'm just going to click on Approve Layout here. And now I can add a couple things here. I can add documents like I've shown you already, but I can also add folders. Let's say I want to add that whole project folder to this task. So I just click the folder, click link, and now that folder is dynamically attached. And I can now browse through that folder structure right here in Workfront. And what's really cool is I can go to the layout here, and I can now contribute assets from Workfront just by dragging and dropping. So let's do that. So I'm going to take this bike on a path, drag and drop that into Workfront. And now, because I'm browsing through the Xinet folder here on the left, the simple act of dragging and dropping that file onto Xinet, onto Workfront, will automatically deliver it on Xinet and create a Workfront link. So, and now generate a proof as well. So that, I believe a lot of people, especially Workfront users, can really see the value here, because now you can have your Workfront users, maybe they are not so well trained or privy or even have access to Xinet. They can now contribute based on their task or projects to Xinet documents. And likewise, your project managers can give clients access to projects like they know they can do already with Workfront. And now clients can interact and collaborate, and their documents will also go to Xinet. So now your digital asset management is truly being managed on Xinet as the single source of truth for those assets. And Workfront is keeping the system of record for all the work together with that, with all the metadata synchronization. So you can see that it's a pretty compelling story here, lots of possibilities and use cases. And we're very excited to show this to you today. And we're looking forward to having conversations with people that would like to implement this, what your requirements are, and how we can move forward. So let's switch over and go right to our Q&A.
Great. Thanks, James. I love seeing it in action. Super excited about the FrontView product. Before we get into the questions, I'm sure there's something we're all thinking. So how much does it cost? As I mentioned earlier, we are in beta currently, but we are accepting pre-orders, and we are offering early bird pricings pricing for orders placed before September 30th. So preliminary pricing is $7,500 plus 1 day of services for install, config, and training. This is subscription-based pricing, and yes, you could use a support day. So why don't, I do see that we have some questions here. So why don't I go, oh, we have a few questions. So our first question is, when moving large content, 300 megs to 6 gigs, to map to Xinet directories from Workfront, what about network delay or latency issues? James, you want to field that one?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, if you're adding those documents to Workfront and then wanting those to be delivered on Xinet, of course, that's going to be determined by the size of the bandwidth internet connection you have between Workfront and your Xinet server. But the more common case there would be if you are putting those documents on Xinet, when you link them to Workfront, all you're doing is putting a dynamic link in there. And so you're not moving any data, and that's immediate. That is super fast. That said, if you're doing a Workfront proof, proof does need to read that data from the Xinet server and generate the proof. But if it's a very large document, maybe that's a good time to get a cup of coffee and come back.
Great. Yeah, and the second part of that question was, the person who asked the question continued with, you know, the concern being the cloud Workfront environment to the Xinet outside network to the on-prem Xinet. But I think you covered that question. I don't know if there's anything you want to add now, James, having that second part of the question.
Yep, I think that, yeah, I did essentially cover it with the, you know, it's all about your internet speed. For large organizations that maybe have, you know, hundreds of users doing this all the time, you know, they tend to have dedicated internet pipes, and wanting to make sure that those dedicated pipes are going to a data center that's Workfront friendly.
Great. Before we take that, well, one of the questions is, will this webinar be recorded? And yes, it's being recorded. So sorry, we didn't mention that earlier. We have another question here. Can I download assets via Workfront?
Yes, absolutely. So that example where a project manager gives a client access to a project, just by giving a client access to a project, if they have permissions to download documents, absolutely. They can, just like regular Workfront documents, download those documents, and it will take the data from Xinet and deliver it to the client.
Great. And here's another question. What if I move an asset? Is it linked via location or file ID?
That is a great question. Yep, we thought about that, and we have linked everything by file ID. So if the file moves on Xinet, then it will still work because it's a file ID link and not a file path link.
Great, and I think we had a couple of questions that related to that, moving a file or deleting a file. Can I create folders once I have a linked project folder?
Oh, right. Oh, can you create folders? That is a good question. I'll get back to you that. I believe the answer is yes. I'm just not 100% sure, so we'll reply back in email.
Right. Here's another question. A lot of good questions. I love it. Could this functionality be customized to a client's workflows if out of the box, if that's not a perfect fit?
Yep, exactly. So this is one of the things that we like to do, you know, as IO integration from a consultancy perspective, is help people identify their workflows and then make sure that the technology fit and the operating procedures and the system design and configuration supports those workflows. So I would say, you know, it takes some investigation, but we're usually able to support most workflows, or at least advise you how we can get there.
Okay. Next question. Can I map both Xinet data to Workfront and Workfront data to Xinet?
Yes, awesome question. You can do 3 things. You can map, you can have custom Workfront metadata that by configuration, so you configure FrontView on the Xinet side to take, say, 5 metadata fields from Workfront and make sure that those get immediately synchronized to the assets in Xinet. On the reverse of that, you can take, say, 5 metadata fields from Xinet and then always make sure that those get synchronized to Workfront. A great use case for that would be, those usage date fields. So usage end date, you can make sure that the usage end date is always synchronized to Workfront, and then later on be able to use those great Workfront reports where you could say, I want to see every project that has assets that are going to expire in the next 90 days. So that would be an awesome way to use this. So that's metadata from Xinet to Workfront and from Workfront to Xinet. And then the third category is you can define some metadata fields that are bidirectionally synced. So people can update them in Xinet, and if they do, they get synchronized into Workfront. And if people are editing metadata fields in Workfront, then they get synchronized into Xinet. So the bidirectional synchronization. So you get all 3 possibilities.
Great. Here's another question. Could you map Xinet permissions to Workfront? For example, if designer uploads a PSD and we don't want business users to interact pre-approval with the content, can it be protected?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. So the protections, Workfront has its own permission-based system, and Xinet has its own permission-based system. So I will say, the basics of that answer are that you will have to rely on the permission system that the end user is using. That said, we can put some, say, Xinet filters or rules on the Xinet machine that can automatically filter things out from Workfront users. So if you had sensitive items in Xinet that you never want to appear in Workfront, you can. There are ways in Xinet to control that.
Great, thanks, James. Also in the audience, we have some people who may not have both of these products yet, so I want to address their questions as well. This question is if the assets are the assets linked or copied from Xinet to Workfront?
Yep, they are simply dynamically linked. So the asset data resides in Xinet, and then Workfront is just a abstract object link, if you will, that then you can do all of your tasks, tag your metadata, and interact with Xinet files in Workfront, but the data is still stored in Xinet.
You ready for another one, James?
Absolutely.
Okay. Does FrontView run on the Xinet server itself, or where does FrontView live?
Yep, it does. So FrontView resides on the Xinet server. There's a configuration, a custom integration configuration that goes into your Workfront instance, but all of the software and the services, middleware, if you will, reside on the Xinet server, and specifically Xinet portal.
Great, thanks, James. Here's another one. Could this functionality be merged with Workfront's Adobe CC plugin, allowing design creative staff to stay in Adobe solutions?
Yeah, that is a great question. We will have to look at that more in depth. There are ways to synchronize, say, buckets of common assets from Xinet into Creative Cloud, and then you could use them from there. But that's yet another third system, in the mix. So we would have to take that, from an exact workflow basis and do some analysis there and make sure that we're covering all of the important points, because it can get complicated.
Great, thank you. Let's see. We've already built project initiation structure in Xinet from the Workfront API. Could this piece be married with existing API development?
Yep, absolutely. So if you already have a custom integration that's doing, something that you're happy with, then that's still going to function. That won't interfere with this in any way. Or if you're looking to maybe moving that functionality over to this, because this is, if you were to purchase FrontView, then you would get, the ongoing maintenance and support and updates, and you would not have to maintain that other custom integration. So a lot of different ways to look at it, but yeah, this will not interfere with other custom integrations.
Great. This one, I want to make sure we covered this. We answered a similar question, but I want to make sure we cover this. If a file is dynamically linked from Xinet to Workfront and then it is moved or deleted in Xinet, what happens to the reference in Workfront?
Yep, that is a great question. So the reference in Workfront still exists. The metadata still exists. If there were Workfront proofs, those still exist as well. But because the data has been deleted from Xinet, if you were to attempt to download it or generate a new proof or, interact with the data for the asset, that would not work.
Okay, thank you. And I can answer this one, I think. So this would require a subscription to Workfront, Xinet, and FrontView. Yes, a subscription to Workfront, a subscription to FrontView, and then depending on what Xinet license you have, if you have Xinet Studio or Xinet Server. And I guess that's a good question that I have for you, James. Does FrontView work with Xinet Studio?
Yes, it will. FrontView requires Xinet version 19, so that's important to put out. But yeah, you required Xinet 19, but Studio, of course, is Xinet 19, so no problem.
I think, oh, here we have one more question. Hold on just a second. Is this pricing a one-time licensing and installation or ongoing and annual reoccurrent support costs?
I think that one's for you.
Ahead. Yes, yeah. So yes, it's a subscription. So it's an annual cost for the FrontView licensing, the subscription, but the installation is a one-time, of course, 1 day for installation and training when you get the software.
That's exactly right. Fantastic. And if there are more questions that come in, we can also answer them, or we will answer them over email as well. So even if you think of something, feel free to send Jenna or any of our sales organization your questions, and we'll get answers right back to you. And if you want to go into and have a custom demo or a deeper conversation, then we're here for you as well.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, James, for the amazing demo. And we're really excited to move forward with FrontView. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions or need more information or a custom demo, and we'll be happy to provide that. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Good. Good afternoon.